Well, here we are, fam. We are finally back with Death Battle episodes. And what a better battle to start us off than Omni Man versus Bardock? Well, not quite what I expected, but not a bad matchup for sure. I was so certain, even on the Discord, that the first episode would be Captain America versus Kamen Rider Ichigo. But I am 100% okay with skipping any Marvel or DC matchups for a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm as burnt out on those episodes than, well, Dragon Ball episodes, but for view's sake, this makes sense. Dragon Ball will always be popular, and Invincible is really hot right now. Plus, this matchup is really debatable. But without stalling any further, how was the episode? Starting with Omni Man's analysis, you can already tell that this is going to be a 10 out of 10 in the editing department. By far, the best part about this episode is the editing. Making both of these analyses? Either way, they're the most compelling they've ever been. You may notice that the animated Wiz and Boomstick are nowhere to be seen, but because of this, the pacing is really nice. Maybe a bit quick for some people, but I really like it this way. That being said, Omni Man's analysis is mostly good, but really weird. They do the same thing they do when they did Omni Man vs. Homelander's analysis of Omni Man, where they mostly stuck to details that the show covered not to spoil any of the characters or any of the potential plots the show will cover later. With the setting of the fight later in this episode taking place on Thraxa, the bug planet that Omni Man has a second child on. This isn't inherently a problem. I personally would just rather have full context of his story to make it more interesting. The feats they use for Omni Man are really weird. They use a planet-busting feat for Omni Man while not acknowledging that there were 3 people destroying the planet at the same time, and that the planet was destabilized. With the black box in this section, which you should really be reading the black boxes for clarification, being used to justify the size of the planet. I think it makes sense to believe that planet was way bigger than Earth because of the logic of the rings surrounding the planet. I like that logic, but there needed to be more context for this feat. They also use a laser from this ship being strong enough to break the solar disk and say that the laser couldn't hurt Viltrumites. Although I was always of the belief that it wasn't the strength of the laser that was the problem, it was the speed. Viltrumites are fast enough to destroy the ship way before that laser started firing, hence why it's not a threat. But if that's the way they want to interpret it, then that's fine with me. They also mention the smart atoms, something I thought would not be a factor at all in this fight. Boo on me in the beginning of my reaction. But it turns out that the smart atoms were way more important in the conclusion. Apart from those details, the rest of Omni Man's analysis was really good, but it doesn't compare at all to Bardock's analysis. Bardock has the best Dragon Ball analysis hands down. From his story, to the editing, to the feats they use being completely different than most other Dragon Ball characters since he's pretty far removed from their stories, this analysis is excellent. Going over his change from seeing his family as nothing more than soldiers, to caring about them, wanting to save them from Frieza, even when he knows he would not succeed. This shows the good in Bardock, more than I think most people give him credit for. Too bad this analysis still has some issues. My first issue isn't their fault. It's the fact that you essentially have to speculate on Bardock's potential feats based on his power level since we never really see him do anything of note in the real show. His speed is calced from Goku reacting to meteors while flying the Namek, and his strength is taken from King Vegeta effortlessly destroying 3 planets. Taking these feats is necessary, I understand, but it just shows how much you have to reach to talk about Bardock in a versus debating sense. The other issue I have is they say Bardock can't control himself in Great Ape, while later showing himself controlling Great Ape when seeing the mother protect her child. I'm sure they could have just worded this a little bit better, but I was a little confused on that fact in rewatches. It could be that he only controlled it minorly in that scene, and that they were trying to just say it was a one-time chance thing. I don't know, but it just didn't look very good on their end. Overall, really good analysis, but how did they do on the fight? First of all, wonderful setup. It really just kind of writes itself, but with the sound cue in the pod landing on Thraxa, it's just so good in my opinion. As is Bardock turning on his scouter, seeing something approaching him quickly, and dodging Omni Man with his superior speed. With a lot of references in this one scene. I'm pretty sure Bardock saying another gross bug planet is a reference to when Vegeta destroyed a bug planet. I don't know how he would know that, and maybe there's something I'm missing, but I think that's what it is. The line that Omni Man says to Bardock right after attacking him is a reference to when he told the aliens in Invincible that the Earth wasn't theirs to conquer. But he switches it to this planet isn't anyone's to conquer. Not him, not any other alien, nobody. Even this pose is a reference, resembling both Mortal Kombat 1 and Dragon Ball FighterZ, with Omni Man breaking Bardock's grip and punching him back. Now, the storyboards show that Omni Man originally did the thing he does in Mortal Kombat 1, where he circles the world just to punch someone back, just to show off his speed. But considering the fact that they have Bardock being so much faster, I actually like that they dropped this reference and left it to just a small punt. They have a good looking sky tussle until Omni Man says a line about Bardock being like his son, and Bardock saying his sons would kick Omni Man's son's ass. Alright. Where I do think the line is funny, I think there is just a better way to incorporate this line because it feels very forced here. The preceding two shots are both better and worse than the storyboards. Better in terms of the fact that Omni Man isn't taking any physical damage yet, seeing as they were quite clear that Omni Man can survive things Bardock can't dish out, at least not in that form. It's worse because of some bad pacing. Bardock stops in his tracks to say the line about his sons being stronger than Omni Man's son. Omni Man just sits there and takes a giant ki blast. I mean, I guess it didn't do any damage, so it's kind of a power move, but like, why? Omni Man then just flies through Bardock's ki blast for a little bit while not getting hit by any of them. Whereas the storyboards show Omni Man was supposed to get hit by a few and only throw the space pod to close the distance with Bardock. And since Bardock needs the space pod to leave the planet, he's not going to keep attacking just to destroy it. He literally needs it, so it makes sense why he would throw it at Bardock. But then Bardock just kind of holds the ship for a second before getting hit, whereas the storyboards have it happening so much faster. I'm sure Devil Artemis had complications and that's why these scenes are done differently. But if the fight was like these storyboards, then it would bump it up in quality in my opinion, like a full letter grade. That being said, holy shit, the Great Ape looks so good. From the transformation to the entire fight with the ape. Damn, they did so well in this. Again, emphasizing the speed advantage while also showing the difference in strength, and that even in this state, Bardock still can't hurt Nolan. Omni Man overpowers Bardock even in the Great Ape form and throws Bardock by his tail, with Bardock's tail immediately snapping off, showing that Omni Man is so much stronger than Bardock and Bardock's durability is so low that even Omni Man is surprised when Bardock's tail comes off. He then hits Bardock with his own tail while he is still getting his bearings back from changing back into a human. Which brings into question if the tail would actually stay giant even though Bardock shrank to his normal size, but who cares, it's fun. And then we get to the Super Saiyan scene, where not only is the blue sun a great set piece, but this is the best Super Saiyan has ever looked. Bardock looks radiant and feels powerful, with his next flurry of attacks finally doing notable damage to Omni Man, showing the sheer difference in power than base form Bardock to Super Saiyan. He even makes a reference to Goku fighting Beerus, but changes the line slightly from "I won't let you destroy my world" to "I won't let you take me from my world," showing how Bardock has evolved and started truly caring for his family in a brand new way, just like how Nolan finally learned to love the people he used to think were beneath him. Bardock blitzes Omni Man in speed, finally putting Omni Man on the back foot and making him bleed. Even though Omni Man's suit's not torn up, so it kinda looks like Bardock's blood is on Omni Man and not the other way around, but I can understand, it's a custom model, they probably didn't have the resources to change it. But Omni Man is just too powerful. They clash with one last punch before it's revealed that, wait, what? Omni Man's the winner? What the fuck? How? Bardock says to remember the name Saiyan and drops into the sun. Which is a weak death for Invincible standards, but I guess it goes with the story of how their hearts have softened, so I guess I'm fine with it, although I would have liked something a little more brutal. Omni Man then says fuck after Bardock has fallen into the sun, and starts to look remorseful. Now, I thought this was because he felt bad for killing someone who also had a family he needed to protect, and Bardock's line about remembering the name of Saiyans was to show pride in his race. But other people have interpreted this as Bardock saying the Saiyan line as a threat to Omni Man, with Omni Man only saying fuck as a way of like, fuck, there's gonna be more of them coming, isn't there? I see why people think this, but personally I'll go with my interpretation. Also, this last part in the storyboard makes more sense as to why Bardock stopped blitzing Omni Man in speed at the end. Essentially, Nolan ends up catching one of Bardock's fists while Bardock is attacking him, and then they have a headbutt clash. Nolan's head, based on their analysis, is obviously stronger, meaning that Bardock getting headbutt by someone so much stronger would probably leave him dazed and confused and make it harder to move. Because of this, he just tries to attack Omni Man with all of his power, but it doesn't work. But let me just say, I actually really love that Bardock loses this after going Super Saiyan. Now, where I don't agree with the conclusion, this is implied to be Bardock's first time going Super Saiyan. And even with this, it wasn't an instant win. Now, in Dragon Ball, transformations go both ways. When the Saiyans get a new transformation, it usually starts as a stomp before something happens and it becomes more even. Super Saiyan Goku was stomping Frieza before he powered up to 100%. Super Saiyan 2 Gohan was beating Cell before he absorbed Goku and came back to fight. Ultimate Gohan was beating Super Buu before Gotenks was absorbed. And Ultra Instinct Goku was beating Jiren with Mastered Ultra Instinct until Goku's body gave out, and so on. This Super Saiyan transformation losing feels more in line with how Dragon Ball transformations have worked than any other episode of Death Battle. And let me appreciate how Super Saiyan actually feels important here. There are so many other transformations now that the original Super Saiyan feels so small. But in this episode, the classic Super Saiyan feels like an outcome-changing deal, even though it didn't change the outcome. Anyways, the last thing I'll talk about before I talk about the conclusion is the song. Solid State Invincible by Brandon Ye. Come on, man. Omni Man's song titles are such trash. I get it's a reference to Solid State Scouter, which is Bardock's theme, but it's still bad. Anyways, it's a really good song that calls back to Diabolical Invincible Me, having lines directly parallel one another. It's meant to show Omni Man's growth between these two parts in his story. But after having Omni Man win and kinda glazing him up for this entire episode, having the song that is, for the most part, based on Omni Man can come off as showing one character more love than the other. Now, I don't think that, but I have seen quite a few people say that, so that's why I thought it was worth mentioning. But anyways, back to the conclusion. What? This conclusion is really weird and frames things so strangely. They talk about how fast Nolan is compared to Bardock, while showing this graph. This graph shows that 20 billion times faster than light is larger than 9.5 trillion times faster than light. Then they show a black box explaining that Omni Man could be 34 trillion times faster than light, which definitely should have been covered in the episode, but I think they were trying to avoid spoilers. Even with that though, using the Super Saiyan transformation, the speed gap is still absolutely insane. I don't know how they determined that Nolan could even land a hit, but it gets even stranger. Now, most people talk about this strength feat for Nolan helping two other people destroy this planet, but that isn't what they used for his strength feat. What they use is the beam of the ship that destroys the solar disk, with a black box stating that this ship can withstand its own firepower, and that Conquest destroyed it, meaning Viltrumites must be stronger than that. This needed to be in the episode, but again, I think they avoided it because of spoilers. They say in another black box comparing the strength that King Vegeta's planet-destroying feat could be maxed out at 7,704 quatatons of TNT, while they gave Nolan 8,641 quatatons of TNT, while also saying the mass scale of Omni Man's power could be 120,000 quatatons of TNT. They do not consider the fact that King Vegeta just raised his hand and destroyed 3 planets with 0 effort. Bardock should scale exponentially higher than what they gave him. Now, I don't think they would put him past that potential 120,000 quatatons, but they should have at least mentioned it or scaled Bardock higher based on that fact. The rest of the conclusion is pretty sound though, talking about how Bardock would tire out using his other forms, essentially saying that even if Omni Man got blitzed in the beginning, the gap would get shorter and shorter before Omni Man could land a deadly hit, which by their calculations he would only need 1. If we were going with the entire content of the episode before the conclusion, I'd give it a B+, but that conclusion seems really sloppy to me and the reasoning just seems a bit off, plus some weird animation moments. So I think my final grade for this episode is a B-. But tell me what you guys think. Let me know all of your deep, dark secrets for spooky month. Anyways, I'll see y'all soon for my reaction of Joker vs. Giorno. Peace!